research study found that almost 1 in 10 adults in this country displays impulsive angry behavior and have access to guns. About 1.5% get seriously angry and carry a gun with them outside the home. These are people who lose their temper and smash and break things and get into physical fights. And they have guns. That seems like a dangerous combination. Gun violence is a huge public health problem in the United States. It claimed the lives of over 300,000 people in the last 10 years. If we carved all their names on a monument, it would have to be 5 times larger than the Vietnam War Memorial on our National Mall in Washington, D.C. To have gun violence, you need 2 things, basically: dangerous people and guns. And in this country, we can't broadly limit legal access to guns, so we have to focus on the dangerous people who shouldn't have them. That's hard to do. If we lived in a world where nobody tried to harm others or themselves, we could have lots of guns and we wouldn't have gun violence. That's not the world we live in. Our current law in the United States prohibits firearms from certain people with a history of a felony criminal conviction or people who've been involuntarily committed to a mental hospital. But the criteria are both too broad and too narrow at the same time. They end up prohibiting firearms from lots of people who probably aren't dangerous, and they fail to prohibit guns from some who actually are. So we have a big problem with gun violence in this country. When do we focus on it as a nation? We tend to focus on it when there is a horrifying mass casualty shooting by a disturbed young man. And people say, why did this happen? And the answer seems to be mental illness. So everybody focuses on mental illness. That's really unfortunate because the vast majority of people with mental illness are not violent and never will be. And most of the perpetrators of gun crimes don't have mental illness. So maybe a better approach to thinking about dangerous people who shouldn't have guns would be to focus on actual risk factors for violence. History of violence, alcohol abuse, things like that are far better predictors of violent behavior than mental illness. Right here in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, my hometown, there was a very angry man who shot 3 students in the head just a few weeks ago. And the police recovered 14 firearms from his home. We're always going to have angry people. We're always going to have seriously angry people. But maybe people like that shouldn't have such ready access to such lethal means. Are these angry people with guns mentally ill? Well, that depends on what you mean by the term. A lot of them do have mental health problems, like personality disorders and drinking too much, but very few of them have acute major psychiatric illnesses like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, which are common in people who get involuntarily committed and thereby are prohibited from firearms. Less than 10% of these angry people with guns have ever been in a hospital for a mental health problem. So that means that 9 out of 10 of them could legally buy a gun from a licensed retailer unless they happen to have a felony criminal record. Based on what we know of their characteristics, many of these angry people with guns might have records of lesser crime like misdemeanor assault or driving while intoxicated, and if those kinds of records, which are readily available, were to be used to disqualify them from guns, that might actually reduce community risk and protect them too. Several states, including Indiana and Connecticut and California, have enacted what are called dangerous persons gun removal laws or gun violence restraining orders, and these are laws that give family members and law enforcement a tool to remove guns from people who are at risk of harming others or themselves, with legal due process protections and an opportunity for people to get their gun rights back if they don't pose a risk to public safety. Our study suggests that laws like this could have a big impact.